Welcome back. Nowadays, you would need a 100-year-old map to find Tarpon, Texas, a tiny fishing village. It was located down south adjacent to waters full of fish and an inn by the same name. Once a famed vacation spot, the town is now known as Port Aransas, but its historic Tarpon Inn remains open for business.
Port Aransas has few landmarks, the marina and the Fisherman's Wharf, the Aransas Lighthouse, but perhaps the best known is the Tarpon Inn. Jim Atwill was practicing law in Corpus Christi when the inn came up for sale in 1977.
I did not see all the things that were wrong with the place when I first bought it. I had typically the rose-colored glasses. The kitchen was a disaster. Everything was a disaster. And I cried for about 6 months. But the place has finally turned around, and it's a very comfortable, very warm, and a very special place.
This is the third Tarpon Inn. No one seems quite sure where the original was.
Some say it's on the site that we're on right now. Some say it's across the way. That burned down in 1900. And then in 1904, the second inn was built. And what's left of that is the Tarpon Inn restaurant. It had a cupola up in the middle.
Much of the Tarpon Inn's history is nailed to the walls of the lobby. Scales from the big fish, the tarpons that were caught along the coast here, signed and dated by the fishermen who made the catches.
I've seen 4 fish in the air at one time. They just got it all out here with, we call them jumping them. We throw a bait out there and old tarpon to grab it, and you set your hook and he'd come out of the water.
Ted Mathews had a party boat and catered to visiting fishermen in the 30s and 40s, and the fishing was good.
Boy, I'm telling you, it was something fantastic.
Ted was a guide for a lot of fishermen over the years, but none more famous than one who sailed in 1937 in a little boat called the Potomac. That, of course, was President Franklin D. Roosevelt.
He was down here inspecting this area for a naval base site. After they went down to Port Isabel and inspected that area, they come back up here and fished out of Port Aransas again, and that's the day that I took them. Barney asked me if I'd take him fishing, and I said, well, who's going to pay for it? He said, Sid Richardson. So I said, well, yeah, I'll take it, but I can't afford to take him out free of charge because gasoline cost us about, I think, 15 cents a gallon then, and we was furnishing gasoline and mullet and ice water and stuff like that, and for about $18 a day. He said, well, Sid Richardson paid for it. So I said, okay, I'll take him. So that's how I got to fish the president. When we backed into the dock here for him to meet the people, they asked him, how big a fish do you catch? He says, about this long here, but it's too big.
Ted's fishing business was suspended during World War II. He didn't go back to it for any length of time. He found other work. But by the 50s, the increase in population, the surfers, and the people with small boats and the scuba rigs, Ted feels drove the fish away from the coast, and tarpon fishing has never been the same.
Those fish just moved offshore. They weren't caught out, they just moved.
No one goes out now just to fish for tarpon, although one occasionally is caught. The first Tarpon Inn was built in 1886. 100 years later, it has a strong hold on life, in spite of the fact that its heyday, too, has passed.
It is past in the respect that families used to come down here and spend 3 weeks to a month. I think that concept of usage of time for pleasure is probably past. But this place is such a touchstone to so many people's lives.
If there were several boats out there, the whole surf would just come alive with tarpon. They'd get all these schools moving. And they'd see the boats get out, they'd run like everything, get ahead of them, and then they'd drop the baits out and wait till they'd swim up to them. It was a fantastic sight.
Today, the Tarpon Inn is still going strong down in Port Aransas. While the inn has undergone renovations over the years, innkeeper Dana Spinks assures us all of its rooms are television and telephone free, retaining its historic atmosphere and coastal charm. Well, coming up next,